there. Great. So let's talk a little bit about CSS. So, preface to say, I used to be pretty good at CSS. I am a little bit rusty. I haven't really dug into it in a year or two, maybe. But the basics are still there. So, and of course, as always, I have opinions. Before we jump in, I guess, so we don't go over stuff that you don't need to go over or jump into stuff that's too ahead of y'all. Where are you all at with what you're doing that needs CSS? And are there any topics in particular that you'd like to talk about?
Positioning things on the page at will would be nice. Fortunately, my partner for Henry is fantastic at CSS. He's done all the CSS for our page so far, and yeah, I would like to know a little bit more about how to position things where I want them on a page, and like how do you visualize where it's going to end up when you're typing in CSS. I guess that's the biggest thing
So
for
can
me.
you describe to me a little bit about the positioning stuff you're talking about? Because there's
Like, for example, yeah, that's a big topic. For example, if I wanted to anchor something to a specific element on the screen, like if I have a div and I want to know how big that div is in relation to like what I'm looking at when I view it, um, so that I can, position something else to line up with that, for example. Um, I don't know. It's just a broad topic. I guess I'm just saying any information on that kind of thing would be helpful. Uh,
um, so are you talking about, let me see if I can understand. So you have a div on your page.
yeah,
Like
or maybe there's an image that takes up an entire div on my page, right? And it's a
great, yeah.
certain size, and I want to align some text to that image, for
Mhm.
example. Um, yeah.
Yeah. So you want to align it next to what I would do in that case probably is wrap the whole thing in an element, maybe a div or something more specific if a section or whatever, and then position that, and then inside that div you could use a lot of things. You could float the image one way or the other. You could use a grid. You could, yeah. There's a bunch of different ways to do that.
Just that kind of connected a dot for me, I think. So, because
Okay.
we've
Cool.
been using like I said, Henry's done most of the CSS, but I've been able to like read it and kind of see what's happening.
Mhm.
So it's just I just feel like it's not something that we've covered a whole ton, so I'm not
Yeah.
very comfortable doing it myself. So
Or at all. Yeah. Do you want to? Can you share yet? Do you want to show what you're talking about so we can take a look?
I don't have anything specific in this case,
Oh, okay. Cool.
unfortunately, but um, I know that particularly on my personal webpage, when I was doing the blog post about that,
Mhm.
I kept wanting to align text to an image on the screen, and I just couldn't figure out a good way to do it. So I ended up just centering everything, and that works
Yeah.
aesthetically. But like, say I wanted to, I just don't know how to control these different things. Like, it seems like some people have so much control over where they want anything to show up on a web page, and I can't even fathom it.
Yeah.
So
And there's like anything else, there's trade-offs there. So there's super high level overview. We have block type elements and we have inline type elements. And they play together in different ways in different places. But you can always assign different display types to anything. So you can make one or the other thing if you want. There are, I was going somewhere with this. Um, I don't remember. So, oh yeah, trade-offs. There are a billion different ways to do stuff, and people have their opinions about what they are, and you'll find a bunch of different advices out there. Really, the kind of the broad scope of things. I mean, number one, make it look the way you want. That makes it work. But it the sort of bigger decision that you don't have to decide, but kind of keep in mind while you're deciding how to do it is how much granular control you want over the styling versus how flexible you want it to be. So if you're building a blogging tool for someone and you want to make sure that things look reasonable when someone just posts something with an image or whatever, and maybe give them tools in that to add formatting or whatever you want. That requires you to be a lot more flexible with your CSS. If you were making like a tile based game or something, like a concentration game or whatever, and you knew you wanted 6 rows of things this way and 6 columns of things that way, and you knew exactly where you wanted them on screen, you could just absolutely position everything. It's not flexible at all, but you could say exactly where you wanted every piece of everything. And you could do that with, you know, pretty much any design. Say, I want these exactly here. They're never going to move no matter what. When the user looks at it on a different size window or on a different device or changes their font size, things might break. So there's always kind of a middle ground of I want things to look more or less the way I want in as many different circumstances, but also, I want them to look a specific way. And there's always a tension there. Especially with, so like aligning text with an image could mean a lot of things. Is it a caption attached to an image that you might want on a card? Is it aligning a paragraph to the top of an image and the paragraph's going to keep going on? There's a bunch of different things there, whether you want vertically or left right aligned, and yeah, again, you're going to find a bunch of different ways to do stuff. There is so CSS is trash for starters. You will find a lot, but CSS has gotten a lot better in the recent years. So you will find a lot of old advice probably out there that uses things that probably still work, but are pretty garbagey and hard to work with and hard to understand. Again, they might work. And if you don't want to learn CSS and just copy paste stuff, you can probably force stuff to work. It might break when you use it in a different context, though. So yeah. Now that's generalizations.
Yeah, so aside from the general broad question there, I was mostly just hoping to get from this to see some CSS being made and see its effects happening on the screen,
Yeah,
because so far that's been pretty effective and what I've learned just picked up along the line. So,
yeah, yeah,
yep.
yeah. We can definitely do that. Um, yeah, let's just jump into do that. Let me see what this looks like. I'm gonna create some stuff here while you have to watch me type. Repo, make a CSS test. Come on, VS Code, where are you at? There we go. Cool. Pop that up there. So let me go ahead and share screen here. Bloop. Get chat and everything up where I can see y'all. Loading controls. Oops. Yeah, there's a way we could do this by default. Cool. So here's my empty project here. We got nothing in it yet. I'm just going to make an index HTML here. And since we know it's an index HTML, we can use Emmet to fill out some basics here. And cool. What kind of thing are we going to be looking at here?
Um,
Anyone have an idea for what we might want to build broadly?
could you build a form to
Ooh,
submit?
yeah, let's do that. Um,
Because we are having kind of like a
mhm,
problem where we can't really center the entire form.
mhm,
Position in the center, it's like
yeah,
far off to the left right now, but we want it moved to the center, but we
yeah, let's
can't.
do that.
Yeah.
Um,
WC.
cool. So I'm going to start off by throwing
Mm.
I'm gonna throw a main div on here just to keep everything in one place. And I'm gonna call it main. How about that? No, I'm gonna make a div. Never mind. Let's hook up some CSS, empty CSS file for it. So I'm just gonna make a index CSS. Pop that open, create the file. Great. So here's where I'm going to put my CSS. And let me just open up a light server. So light, there we go. Where's it going to open? Who knows? I had a browser window over here. Yeah. All right. So here's our empty document. Loop. So let's go ahead and throw a couple things in here. So we want a form. What is it? What is the form doing? What are we adding here?
Maybe it's adding comments.
Cool. Yeah. So let's make this. Let's make this a bloggy thing. So let's do this. I'm going to put an H1 here and say generic blog. And just to make sure that we can see it. Yeah, great. So this is what this looks like without styling. And generally what I like to do often is throw the content in there so that I know what I'm going to be looking at and then style it after the fact. So let's throw some content in here first. So do I need this div? I'll decide in a minute. So generic blog. I'm going to show, let's just do a blog entry here. So I'm actually going to use maybe a section. Yeah. I'm going to use a section here, and this is going to be the blog title. Title. We're going to have a paragraph with some content. Is there an emit thing to do? What is it? Nope. Let me go ahead and grab some. Cool. So get some text here. Format nicely. Great. So here's our blog title. I'll put some. Let's do this. Is it going to be? Oh, this should be an article, not a blog. I want what would I want to use for a byline? So I'll just put it in a div right now. I don't like a div. Put it in a details. I don't know if details is right either. Yeah, I'm just gonna put it in a little div right now, and we can fix it up semantically later if we feel like it. Cool. So here's this. And I think maybe I want an image in here. And what I want an image of. Let's get a. Cool. Perfect. How big is that? That shouldn't matter. Great. Yes. I'm gonna put that in my here. Off. So I've got a penguin picture there, article, and let's put our form down here to add a new thing. So let's make this a section. I'm going to put I can just style the form. Yeah, fine. I'll put another H. Oh, I guess it should be an H2, right? Add new blog. And let's add our form down here. So we got a form. Let's do an input. We'll just put a title, name, and some text. So text, author, or blog title, title. Hmm. I want it that way. And let's just do input text for text. And then a submit, spelled right. The value, yeah. Great. And so we want to add some labels to this. There's a couple different ways we can do that. Let me do it this way. Cool. Let's see if that is doing anything close to what I think it should. Great. Picture of penguin is not coming up. Why not? Is that not a valid thing? No. Let's put the quotes in the right place. How about that? Cool. Loop. There's our penguin. Great. So here is our content. This looks great. Ship it. So here are some things I'd like to do with CSS. I would like to establish some typography, so it's not just the default stuff. I would like to make it not take up the whole page because that's hard to read. I would like the images in blog entries to be the same size, so we'll set a size for that. And I would like the form to look better, period. So let's start with the main thing. So we have our outer div here, and I'm just gonna give it a class. And so even though there's only one, I'm still gonna give it a class. Again, I prefer to use classes for styling and IDs for JavaScript or other interactions that way. So I'm gonna add a class, and I'm gonna call it container. Yeah. So this is our main container, and that is going to give our stuff a little style. So I can address it by container like that. I can say div container if I want to, but since I'm just using it as container, and I might decide to change it from a div later on. So let's call it container for now. So right now, it looks like it's just full across the page, and we don't want it to do that. So I'm going to, well, let's set some ground rules for the whole thing. So I'm going to add a rule to the body that says our font size is what? Let's say 14 pixels for starters. And so now this container, I want to kind of give us some wide margins on either side and keep it to a relatively standard width. So I can do that by saying, I can set the margin. And so margins, paddings, and stuff like that are usually set top, right, bottom, left. So I could say 1, 2, 3, 4. That's my top, right, bottom, left. If you only give it 2, then it's the top and bottom, and right and left. And if you only give it 1, it's the same all around. So I want to give it the same on the top and bottom, which is going to be 0. And I want to tell it to size itself automatically on the right and left side. So I can say auto there. I could give it a pixel width or a M size or whatever there, but I think we'll just let it figure itself out to make that do anything, because right now it's not doing anything except make the text a little bit smaller. Cool. I need to say how much, where I want it to be in general here. So I'm going to give it a maximum width so that it's only going to be a certain size no matter how wide someone's screen is. So it's whatever we think a reasonable size is. So I can say max width is going to be, call it 50 M or 50 rem, call it. Difference between M and rem. Rem is the relative size based on the main font of the root, and M is relative to I think it's the parent container or the container itself. Yeah, the thing that's contained in. So this is going to be 50 times whatever the base size is, which should be, I'm going to make this HTML actually. So whatever the base size is, 14 points. So it should be 50 times 14 pixels, which is going to be 700, I guess. Let's see what that looks like. Hey, look at that. Better already. Cool. So now we have it looking a little better here. Let's talk about what the text looks like. So right now, typography is a huge, huge topic. In general, body text in print, sans or serif fonts are pretty good. And so you'll see, I mean, most books written in a serif font. The serif means it has the little nubbies at the end there. So this is a font, and hey, you can inspect it and look at what all the properties are. So right now our font is what? Who knows? Times. So we know our font is Times right now. That is boring basic font. I'll give it another boring basic font, but make it sans serif on screen. Sans serifs tend to read a little bit better unless you're using it for a reason. It's not like a stylistic reason. So I'm going to set these to a some other thing. No, I'm actually going to put this on the body instead of the HTML. So so this is the cascading part of CSS, means that the rules flow downwards. So if I define a rule in HTML or in body, those are going to flow downwards into everything below that. Same with, if I assign something to a div, it'll flow down. Some things flow, some things don't. Like width is not going to flow down, but a lot of typography stuff is, and you can always look up if something does or not. Yeah, so I'm just going to set a font family here. Let's make it, what do I like? Let's just make it Helvetica. Why not? Font family. So, hey, look at that. Ooh, I like Gill Sans too. This gives you a bunch of options. You can type them out if you want. You can just give it one if you want. In general, it will try to match the fonts in order, depending on, so like my Mac is not going to have Trebuchet. Microsoft probably, maybe it will. Other computers might not have Gill Sans installed for some reason. Worst case, it's going to fall back to the default of a sans serif font. So let's see what that looks like. Awesome. Maybe not Gill Sans there. I don't think Gill Sans is better for display stuff. Let's go with good old Arial Helvetica sans serif. Boop. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Cool. So, yeah, that's okay. So I think I would like to look at the image next. Or actually, let's go ahead and style some of the stuff up here. So let's say I want that title or centered, give it a little bit of zhuzh up there. So I'm going to just style the H1. I'm not going to have a class on it. Again, this is a matter of discussion. In general, so the philosophy I subscribe to often is, in general, you want one H1, that's the top level heading, and then H2 is always going to be inside H1, H3 is always going to be inside H2, and so on. Use them like you would in an outline. Some people use them for making things different sizes. That is a bad thing because that doesn't tell us anything about the hierarchy of the page. So you'll often see people, including me, use things to set a bigger or smaller size with that, and it's kind of semantically trash, so don't do that. That said, let's go ahead and I'm going to, let's center it first. So let's center it. And so that's going to pop that over there. I want to make it a little bit bigger. So so there are defaults, clearly. And I often recommend, if you look at reset, that's what I want. There are many CSS reset sheets that basically strip all the default styling off so you can make it look like you want. In any real project, I will always do this so I can build my CSS up from nothing. Right now, I'm going to lean on some of the built-ins. So right now we can see a H1 is 2M, so it's twice the size of a normal line. I'd like to make it a little bit bigger. So I'm going to make it 3 size. CSS. Where was I here? So it was 2M, now it is. Yeah, cool. So I'm going to make it font size. I'm going to make it 3 rem, so it's relative to the base. And that just means the entire page will scale as one instead of individual bits. If you want to use M's specifically to maintain consistency in elements, great, do that. In general, I default to rems. So that makes it a little bigger. Great. And I'm actually going to give it a little bit more. I'm going to give it a little bit more margin up on top. So what does it have now? Box model. Do I want to talk about box model? I don't. I do. Right now, our margins are, what do they look like? 28. Oh, yeah, there we are. So brief digression on box model. Every element has a size and every element has 4 main parts as the content, which is the middle stuff, what you mostly think of what's in it. Padding is the space in between your content. So in our case, the words generic blog and the border, which we do not see right now. You can put a border on anything. So a border is going to have a color, a size, a style, maybe some other stuff. But the important part here is the size. And then it has a margin, which we can see highlighted up here on top, that says how far the edge of the border is from the next element. So you can play a lot with those to position things differently. All I'm going to do is bump up right now the margin to say, I'm just gonna make it like 35. I don't know, or maybe I'll do it in M's. So I'll do margin, and let's see what 2M's looks like. Actually, 35, 34. It's gonna be smaller. And on the other side of 0, what does that look like? I don't know if I like that. Yeah, that's too big. So I want margin. I'm going to specify. So you can specify margin top, margin left, margin right, margin bottom. So I want margin top is, that's not 84. What is it? Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, that's too much. So I'm going to make it, I'm going to make the margin 1M around, all the way around. That's fine. And I think I'll give it a little border on the bottom. Let's make it like, I don't know, 4 pixels. Solid. Make it solid black, see what that looks like. Are we doing that? Border bottom, 4 pixels, solid black. Striking. I don't want that margin to be on the sides. Great. Cool. That's fine. I'll take that. So I think I'm happy with the H2 size. Let me just specifically say H2 is going to be, let's make it 2 rem just to see what that looks like. Let's make it 1.8. Picky. Nope, not 18. That's way too big. But you can if you like. Cool, that's fine. And actually, I'm going to make it a different color so it has a little bit of contrast. I'm going to make it like just like a slightly darker or slightly lighter. So I'm going to say like 666 maybe. It's not gray. Perfect. And so this has a margin here on the bottom that I don't especially like. So I want that bumped up against the byline there. So I'm going to set margin. I'm going to give it 1M on the top. I'm going to give it 1M. Yeah, 1M on the top, 0, 0, 0 all the way around. See what that looks like. Cool. So now it's bumped up against there. And we still got that space up there. Margins overlap. So if you have 2 things that have a 1M margin, there'll just be 1M worth of space in between. Cool. I think this is fine here. I'm going to give. So let's take a look at our structure here. I could put some margin on the bottom of this. I don't think I'm going to. I think what I am going to do is I'm going to wrap this all in a main element. And that just tells us this is the main part of our thing. Semantics, you might want to use it differently, but I'm going to use this for here. You might want to use a section. Again, they're more for telling you what they mean than being right one way or the other. So I'm going to call it main right now. And so let's take a look at how we can target other things in our CSS. Right now, we're just targeting individual things. I would like to target this main. And just for show, I'm going to put a border 4 pixels solid red, so we can see. So here's our main element here. And I want to put a little margin on top, but I want that to be for every main element in an article, but not necessarily every main element everywhere, because who knows what's going to happen. So I can actually target it article main, and they'll say this is selecting every main element that's inside an article. So this will help us target it a little bit more specifically. And instead of a gross border, I'm just going to give it a margin up top. Top. And again, we'll give it like 1M. Little breather room. Great. So now we have this image. Let me add a class to that image. I'm going to call it slug or a thumbnail image. Class equals gosh, what is it? Let's call it blog image. Cool. So now we have a class named blog image that we can use here. I'm going to specifically target this with the image. Not actually, I'm not going to, because it says image in the title. So here, let's set. So I think I'm okay with it having whatever height. I think I want it to be a specific width. So I know that our main thing is 50 pixels across or 50 Ms across. I'm going to make the width, say 20 Ms. I'm going to give it height of auto. So it should resize it, if I spell it right. It should resize it according to what the width is. And I will make that a number. So that works. Great, that's all right. So I would like the text to flow around it though, just to show more. I'll just copy these, make a copy of these, bloop, great. So now we have a little bit more content. So I'd like that to flow around. And again, there's a few different ways to do this. I think I'm going to float the image. So basically what that says, float says, take the image out of the standard document flow. So it's going to kind of float along the left side here. And the text should wrap around it unless I've done something terribly wrong. Great. But look, it's right up against it. I want to give it a little bit of space there. So I'm going to give it, again, a margin. I'm going to give it margin. I'm just going to give it right and bottom. Margin right. Let's give it 0.5 em. Cool. And maybe a little bit more. Give it full em. Fantastic. Cool. So now I have text flowing around my little image. And I can do stuff like give the image borders or drop shadows or all sorts of things, make a specific shape. So here's our first blog title. So that is some super, super basic styling there. Let's look at the form. So I think I'd like to, I'm going to take a little bit of that content off so we can actually see it. Undo. Great. So let's format this blog here. So again, several ways we can do this. I'm going to separate this section from the blog itself by putting a border on top and seeing what that looks like. And I might want to add some image. So I'm going to say section class equals new blog. And let me put a border on top. A border top. This one was 4, right? Yes, let's make it 2 pixels, solid, and I'll make it like 3, 3, 3. Cool. That looks okay. Maybe get a little bit more room up top. Yeah, perfect. So I'm liking that distance there. I think, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. So this has, again, it's got a margin up top of 25. And does it have a margin on the bottom? I guess not. Let's give it a little space down below. You can make it like 1 em. Get a little room to breathe. Margin bottom 1 em. Inspect it to make sure everything's going right. Why are we not getting anything down there? So let's give it like 10 em to see if it bumps it. Did I just do something wrong? I think I must have just done something wrong.
It's not inside of H2.
You're right. You're absolutely right. So cool. Let's do this. So this is an H2 inside that new blog section. So let me do new blog, H2. And now I can put the margin bottom here. And that should target that guy. Great. Let me make it like 0.8. All right. Now let's look at our form. So here's our form. How do we want to style it? So there's a bunch of different ways we can make it look different ways. What are your thoughts on what you would like the blog to look like, or what the form to look like? Any ideas?
Maybe stacked.
Yeah, cool. So we'll put we'll put like title boom, other boom, content boom, and then create at the bottom. All right. So let's take a look at how we have this structured one more time. We have, so I'm a big fan of using labels in forms, not only because it puts that text there, but it also helps with accessibility. So if you're using a screen reader or something where you have to tab through stuff because you can't use mouse because of motor stuff, it will know which label is attached to which form element, no matter where you put it. Accessibility is super important. That's why I always put alt on images. Great for web users with no vision. Trivia question: who is the largest consumer of web content that is vision impaired? It's Google. The Google search engine can't see your web page with eyes, so it relies on the alt tags and labels and all the other accessibility stuff, ARIA stuff, to help index the content. So not only is it good for being a good person and letting other people use your content, but it's also good for SEO. So we like both of those things. So always use as accessible stuff, and that's a whole another lesson altogether. Cool. So let's see. Again, a bunch of different ways I could do this here. I'm going to start off with this. Let's do, let's do this. So I'm going to, I could do it that way or that way. Well, let's do this first. So here's our label. So let's assume all of our forms are going to look like this. I'm going to say form label. I'd like to make them a consistent width, I think. So question is label a, and we can see here, is label an inline element or a block element? Can we tell from this? Jason, any ideas?
Inline?
Inline, yeah. So inline basically is an element that goes with the flow of text. Blocks will take up at least a full line unless you tell it otherwise. Like a div will go across the page. But we can change those at will. So we can say, and there's block and inline, but there's also flex and other combinations of stuff. I'm going to say, well, let's make it an inline block. Let's see what happens. So basically, an inline block means that outside it acts inline, inside it acts like a block. So we can give it a width, for example. I want it to stand out a little bit too. So I'm going to text transform. I'm going to make it all capital. And I'm going to set the color to, let's make it 666 again. Nice monochrome. Cool. I'm going to actually align it to the right now. Right. Let's see what this gets us so far. Great. It did not do that, did it? Text transform. Oh, capitalize. All caps I want. Text transform. Uppercase. That's what it is. Fantastic. Cool. So I want to make it about this big, and that looks, let's call it 10M. Which great. So already we're seeing stuff come together. Yeah, look at that. So what we want to do is make sure that each one is on its own line. And how would we do that? Well, we could do it a gross way by putting a line break at the end or something. Oh, maybe let me try something that I actually haven't tried before. So let me add something to the inputs. So these are all inputs. Yeah. These are all inputs. So let's just do a form input. And oh, so if these are 20M or if these are 10M, I'm gonna make the form. Oh, I'll do it this way. Yeah. I'll make these inline block as well. And I'm gonna make them like 45M. I'll make them 40M. 45. And so this should, whoa, too big. Too big, too big. I want to make them 25M. How about that? Does that do what I want? Nope. Let's make them 35M. There we go. So now all of these are taking up that spot. It's bumping it all. If we don't want the forms elements that long, we would have to do something else. So let's do something else. I'm going to make these all, say, I don't know, 20M, so they all match up. And that's going to blow away this thing here. I think I want to try. I don't think this is a thing that works. Let me just see. Clear. Clear. Right. I don't think this does what I think it does. No, it doesn't. Great. Interesting. So yeah, what I was trying to see if it would. I don't think clear does that. Clear does. Yeah, clear does that other stuff. So that's not going to work. What I would like to do. So I could put it in a table. Back in the old days, we put everything in tables, but tables are just for tabular data, so I'm not going to do that. We could use Flexbox to align them, or we could make a grid. I think I'm going to go with Flexbox just to show that off a little bit because we have about 12 minutes left. Yeah, so Flexbox I don't use very often, but I'm going to look it up. And it's I think CSS. So Flexbox is real cool. It lets you do a lot of stuff that is really difficult without it. So let me set this up. So I'm going to have to put a wrapper around each one, I guess. Maybe this is not the best way to do it then. If I'm going to put a wrapper around, I'm just going to put divs around each one of these. Or let me see what this looks like. So you can put stuff inside the label. I don't know if that's what I want. If I take the width off of the element,
Hey, Mark.
hey, look at that. Yeah.
Sorry to be super late to the party. I just had a dentist appointment. I
Yeah.
got back from. But I'm curious. I don't know inline block at all. I'm very curious what the difference between, display inline block as opposed to display block.
Yeah. So block lets you treat the inside like a block, so you can give it width and height and all that stuff, and then it treats the outside inline, so it'll flow with the rest of the text.
Oh, so inline. Oh, okay. So you would use that preferably with the form as opposed to, because otherwise that entire thing would become separate blocks like stacked on top of each other. Unless you did flex box, right?
I think I want. Ooh, yeah, that's not what I want. Let's do. Okay, so I wanted to avoid doing this, but I'm going to not avoid doing it. I'm going to put each one of these in its own little div and undo what I just did. Great. So each one of these is going to be in its own little div. I don't necessarily advocate for this, but it is one way of doing it. That. Undo both of these. Make a copy there, move it down, make a copy there, move it down, make a copy there, and that, and move that down. Format. What did I do wrong? Cool. So this should put everything on its own line. Great. And now we'll just spruce this up a little bit. So I'm going to make this width 10em again and make it inline block again. Blammo, there we go. And now I can, so since that button got styled with the other elements, I'm going to use a attribute selector. So I can say form input. Oh, what's the syntax for that? Is it this? I don't think that's it. Let's look up some CSS stuff. CSS, how to select input type submit. So close. Type equals submit. Cool. So now we can target just that button. I'm going to give it, since we know that those labels are 10em, I'm going to give it a margin left of 10em. And I'm going to give it a width of, you can give it a width of 10em. See what that does? I'm going to give it a little margin on top too. Like 0.4em, rem, rem, rem. I'm so in the habit of doing stems. Rem. And again, rems are relative to the root size, not the not the parent element size. Cool. Let's bump that over just a little bit more because I think we've got some border in there. 10.2. Magnifico. Cool. That is one way to do that. I probably wouldn't style it by hand these days. What I like to do is grab a framework. So a lot of people like what's the big one? Material, semantic, bootstrap, any of those things. I like to use a really minimal one. So it's called Skeleton. And basically it gives you a lot of really basic stuff. You can set up a little grid so you can position stuff. This will make positioning your forms easier. It also does some default positioning of forms. So this is basically you just position stuff by putting classes on it. And it's really easy to drop in your file. You can just do skeleton CDN, I guess. Skeleton CDN. And you can just like grab a link to the library, and you can do this with all the other ones too. I'm just going to copy the whole link tag. I'm gonna put that in here, and I'm going to comment this. I'm just going to remove this for a second. So this is what it looks like just with skeleton. Not great, but not terrible. And then if we add in our other style stuff on top of it, it's going to gunk it all up. But since it is minimal, so it sets a basic default thing. But look at that. This is all set up too. So I usually start with skeleton and then build on top of it. But you can also like start with bootstrap or material or semantic or whatever you like and build on top of that. I might do this with Flexbox or Grid. I might not, depending on how I feel today. But yeah, there's a bunch of different ways to do everything. There are 100 times more ways to do it wrong, or to do it not wrong, but so that it doesn't look the way you want to look. I like, there's a fun little walkthrough called Web Design in 4 minutes. There we go. This will take you from this and like click you through all of the stuff that you can do to it, and has the CSS along the way. And by the time you're done, it will look like this. And you can make it look real nice. Last thing to do, and voila, great. And this is what the final product is. So I recommend jgthms.com, web design in 4 minutes. This will show you some basic stuff to help it look, just a little bit better than default. I recommend using a library like Skeleton. Getskeleton.com will take you where you want to go. And like the CSS for that is dead simple. You can actually look at it. So you can look at it in a web browser like this one. Come on over. So this is the CSS for this, and you can actually learn a lot by looking through it. It has it's not long. It's like 200 lines or something. It's got a table of contents. Comments in your CSS are great, much more so than JavaScript because it's harder to tell what they're doing. But yeah, look through Skeleton CSS. There's a lot of fun tricks in there. And yeah, CSS resets are great if you want to start from scratch. Definitely just Google CSS reset, and that will get you started. It'll strip everything away. So yeah, I'm not going to show you. It's real cool, and just lets you build up from scratch. Most frameworks start off with a reset and then build on top of it, so it's not trying to work around any browser defaults. And if you need spooky lorem ipsum, go to hplipsum.com. Yeah, I think that's all I've got for now. And what was the CSS tricks? Despite the name, has tons and tons of great tutorials if you want to learn how to use Flexbox or Grid or anything, animations, SVGs, gradients, drop shadows. This is a great place to look. Pretty much anything. If you type Google CSS tricks, the thing, there's bound to be an article on it. And yeah, I think that's where I'm going to end this. What questions do we have? Got a couple minutes.
What was the website for the web design in 4 minutes again?
This one. jgthms.com. Web design in 4 minutes. And I'll post this video with all the links and stuff. So that's my go alarm. I'll post the video up with all the links and stuff in it. So you'll have that to refer to. Awesome. Anything left? Anything else in the last minute or so we have? Cool. CSS is a huge topic. There are people whose job is just CSS or just a part of CSS. So you can spend as much time as you have in your lifetime to learn it and use it and do cool things with it. You can do all sorts of cool stuff. It's also a giant pain in the ass most of the time. So if becoming a CSS expert is not your heart's desire, just making it not terrible is good enough. That's where I go on. I can't necessarily make things nice, but I can make them not suck. So if you shoot for not suck, everything above that is icing. Awesome. Thanks for hanging out. I'm going to post this video in the usual places. I'll put all the links in the description. And yeah, I'll see y'all in a little bit.